Welcome back to the weapon modeling tutorial. We stopped here with this completely finished model of the sword, and the next thing we're going to do is texture it. To do that we have to change the view in Blender. There are a couple of presets, and the one we're going to use now is UV editing, which gives us an image editor to the left and the 3D view on the right side. And we want to create a new texture, so we press the new button in the bottom and set a couple of things. The name is just an internal name. Nonetheless, it's a good idea to give it a sensible name. I'm going to call it sword text, text being short for texture. And now I have to set width and height. It's important to keep them powers of 2. So, for example, 128, 256, 512, or 1024. Otherwise, Jedi Academy won't be able to use them. Since the sword is very long but not very wide, I'm going to keep it at 1024 width, but will only make it 128 pixels high. We don't need an alpha channel for this texture, and we want to enable the UV test grid, which will create this grid, which will help us see how it maps to the model. Now enter the edit mode by pressing Tab or selecting it in the bottom, and select everything by pressing A. And now again select sword text to assign this texture to the selected triangles and faces in general. Not all our faces are triangles right now. For example, here we have a quad. We don't see anything yet because we are still in the solid mode. We can change this to textured, and whoops, our model appears to be inside out. Well, not everywhere here it's correct, but we can automatically let Blender calculate the right outsides, make normals consistent. So press space, enter that, and now they're all outside. Now we can see the benefit of using this test grid, because it really helps us see that it's totally distorted and nothing's really where it's supposed to be. And that's been pretty natural because we didn't say where what is supposed to be yet. Another thing is the lighting. It's currently lit by this lamp up here. We don't want that, so let's exit the edit mode, go back to the object mode, select the lamp and just delete it by pressing X. Now it's evenly lit. So let's go back into the edit mode, and now here on the left we have the mapping of the faces to the texture, and currently every face is using the whole texture or half of it. That's not right, of course, but we can let Blender automatically determine the positions here. This is called the UVmap because the axes here are not X, Y and Z as in the 3D view, but U and V. And we can automatically let Blender create that. We can simply press U and press click on Unwrap, and it will do something, well, somewhat reasonable. We can set some settings in down here. Currently it's angle based. We can also make it conformal, which means it uses a different algorithm, which in this case gives better results, but still not quite perfect ones. Here it's pretty stretched. You want to try to keep the square on your model, or otherwise there will be distortion. So we need to cut this in multiple parts. Currently this is semi wireframe see-through, so I'm selecting limit selection to visible here, and now it's not that kind of transparent anymore. And I switch to the edge selection mode again by pressing Ctrl Tab and select the edges where I'd like there to be cuts. So I'm selecting these edges. Now I press Ctrl E and mark as seam. So this is where it will be cut. I'm adding another seam here. Again, Ctrl E, mark seam. And let's just see how this will turn out. Again, select everything, press Unwrap. And now we can see how there are multiple parts. One here, that's this one, another one here, and the blade in front. This does look pretty reasonable, but it's a little distorted here, so I'm again going to change this to conformal, which gives better results in this case. I don't really know what the difference is, but there is one, and just try both and see what looks better. Now we're going to... oh, it already changed this to use the space better, but we can still edit it by hand. Down here we can change what will be selected. I'm going to select islands. The connected parts are called islands, and the commands are pretty much the same as in the 3D editor. We can press G to grab it and move it around. You can see on the right how it moves when I move it here. I want the blade to be actually I want everything to be as big as possible, so we have the best use of the space. So I'm scaling this up using S and moving it around. Now trying to fit it in. I'm going to rotate this by pressing R. You can press Ctrl to limit it to 5-degree rotations and multiples thereof. Now I'm moving this part a little bit down like this, and now I'm pretty happy with this, so I'm going to save it. And now we can start creating the textures. So one way of doing this would be to export the UV layout. You would then get a file. Just going to do it right now. You get this file containing the layout, which you could then edit in an editor of your choice, Photoshop or whatever you like. I'm not really good at that, so I'm just going to use Blender, because Blender has pretty nice tools for that as well. First, though, I'm going to pack this image in the Blender file, pack as PNG, and save again. We can store lots of data in Blender files, images being one of them, besides the model. And now I'm switching back. I'm done with UV editing for now. I'm switching back to the default screen layout. As you can see, it remembered the settings it last had, and I have to change it back to textured here as well. I'm going to change the mode to the texture paint mode now. And in the left we have all the settings we need. It's pretty small at this resolution. Oh well. So we can use textures, and to manage those I can click new here, but that will just create a default texture. The texture management is in the right here in the default screen layout. These are the textures, and we will go to the brush textures right here, and here we can select our texture, click the little image and select the texture. We don't want clouds, we want an image. And which image? Well, we have to open one. I'm simply going to use Jedi Academy textures. So I'm going to textures. I think I'll try out some factory textures. So I'm changing the display mode to thumbnails up here. And now I select a texture that looks good. I think I'll go for this one. And now I can set a couple of settings. The strength is, well, if I keep this low it will just draw it a little, not very strongly. And if I make it 1, which I want right now, it will draw it everywhere. Now you might notice these strange results. Those are due to the mirroring. So during the painting we want to turn the mirror off. So go to the object modifiers up here and click on the eye to disable the display. And now we can start painting. As I said, the strength is one parameter we can set. The radius, of course, is how big the brush is supposed to be. And another important thing is the curve, which defines the fall off near the edge. We can make it have a hard edge like this, or we could use a nice fall off like this, but right now a hard edge is pretty good because I'm just painting everything, creating a base texture. So I'm just painting this whole sword. Now here is a, going to try and keep it in one go. And now I'm going to change the curve to something with a bit nicer fall off, like this, to paint this over because there was a hard edge which I didn't want. Kind of like this. Now if you turn the mirror back on, you may notice, I did anyway, this part in the middle where it didn't paint properly. Usually you can increase the bleeding amount, which means I'm going to show you on the UV layout. So it will can paint beyond the actual end. If we look at this here, this part is at this edge where the two connect, and if I increase, I'm going to texture paint here. If I increase the bleeding, I've increased it to 8 right now, and paint something, I'm going to use a smaller radius and paint. Then, as you can see here, it creates the draws far beyond the end. The problem we're facing here is visible here. It's hardly visible, but here it doesn't paint over. And usually you could use bleeding to make it paint more than necessary, or sometimes as much as necessary, to fix this. But in this case it doesn't work for some reason. So I'm going to paint directly on the image on the left. You can use the brush here to enable the image painting mode and have pretty much the same tools. You can select an image which you want to use, basics 3 being, this is the image I'm showing on the background. I want to keep this as short text. The texture is down here, which currently is called texture. I'm just going to rename that to metal. And now if I draw with that, you'll see how it is kind of smearing all over the place. We can change that behavior by ticking fixed texture. That will keep keep the texture origin in a fixed position, right. I'm lowering the radius here and just painting the edge. Just painting all edges a little more. Actually, I'll just paint the whole image with a base layer of metal. And now I'm going to make details in the 3D editor. Going back to the default layout. Turning the mirror off again. And now I'm taking another look at my reference picture to get an idea of what it's supposed to look like. So this line should be a little brighter. So I'm going to disable the texture by pressing the little X. Use white. Don't want such a high strength. And the radius need not be that high either. So I make it pretty small, and I think I want a better fall off, different curve. Maybe this one. I think I'll actually edit the curve myself. You can move the points around. I think that's pretty okay. It's a little hard to draw with a mouse. I'm not really good at creating textures, but it does turn out okay usually. It's really just a matter of practice, and I don't have much. Well, that does look okay. So I'm taking another look at the reference image. I'm just going to make it loosely based on this, not exactly the same. But first of all, I'm going to save again. And also save the image again. You can also save the image externally. And as usually, you can use Ctrl Z to undo your changes. Now it can help if you enter edit mode so you see the faces. this doesn't really improve the look. I'm just going to completely draw this in here due to that strange bug where it doesn't paint everything. May not be a bug actually, maybe I'm just doing it wrong, the wrong way, but well, this works, so yeah. Just trying to make the middle a little darker right now. I'm not sure if that's going to look any better. Well, it does look okay. I think I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to try painting the handle. I'm not quite sure how exactly it's going to look like. I think I'll look for an interesting texture to use, because I can't really paint anything myself. So again, I've created a new texture. I'm going to call it handle. Selecting textures up here and making sure it's brush textures, otherwise it won't display the right textures. So select that, set the type to image and open. And in the base folder I'm looking for a nice texture. I'm not really sure where anything nice is. I'll take a look at well, no, Imperial doesn't really have. I want to maybe Rocky Ruins could have some cloth-like materials which might work. No, not really. I'll just try this one. See how that turns out. Again, don't forget to turn off mirroring. And increase the strength. Right, brightness up. Yeah, that does look okay. Going to add yet another one. Something for the bottom of the handle. You also have recently used folders down here. Going to Corriban again. I think I'm going to try this crystal texture. Not sure how it'll work out, but let's have a look. Yeah, that does look okay, I think. Let's turn the mirror back on and have a look. Yeah. That's kinda nice. Okay. Well, this part doesn't look quite right, not as good as I'd like it to, but I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it. I think I'll just give it a different color. And a different texture as well. Again, creating a new one. I'll take another factory texture. There are some different colored metals. Maybe this one. And paint this on here. And I think I'll highlight this line. Yes. Again, changing the curve and the strength down. Now turning the mirror back on to get a look. Yeah, this does look pretty good, I think. So that's it for this part of the tutorial. Next time we'll look at the necessary steps to get it inside Jedi Academy.